I don't know. I was thinking the scene from the middle. I expected nothing, and I was still disappointed.
Yeah.
Oh, we're live now. Okay.
And with that, you just do it. It turns out okay. Hey everyone, I'm 98. I got a haircut, and I have 3 guests today. Two people have you seen before, and a random new one. All right, introduce yourselves real fast.
Okay, well, I'm gonna assume we're just going counterclockwise, as is the nature of things. I am Gutsick Gibbon. I go by Erica on YouTube, and I'm into like primates. So I talk about monkeys and apes and humans, incidentally. Jackson, that's you. You're
I'm
next.
Jackson. That's me. Yeah, I'm Jackson. I like all organisms. Although I'm kind of into fungi right now because I started reading a book about fungi, and they're pretty cool.
Fungi,
but I do videos about evolution.
Our cousins.
Yeah, actually, it's this one right here.
Ooh.
This book is real neat. I recommend it to everyone.
What are you thinking? Some
All peoples,
mycology down
sure.
the line?
Nah, I'm good. I like animals more, but this is some neat stuff. Like
You're gonna be breeding some fungi, different like artificial selection fungi breeding.
Probably not. There've already been so many studies with like inducing multicellularity in Saccharomyces, and I'm kind of wondering why creationists still argue multicellularity couldn't evolve. But anyway, I mostly do evolution videos, and I have a book, The Rocks Were There, so buy that if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah, do it. Do it.
And
I own it.
Do it. There
And
you go.
last but not least, new guy.
The answer is yes.
Hey,
Random, you can talk.
There.
it's your turn.
Hello! I was kind of worried that Copper might demonetize this video.
It hasn't demonetized. Wow.
But,
I'm not popular enough to be monetized yet.
so, I do biology videos that are animated, or technically semi-animated. They're in frames, like some sort of like skit comics, and they're about all sorts of biology stuff.
Absolutely. Random Evo Times is today is the hatching day. We were informed.
Yep.
Sorry, one of those doors opened. Did you hear it?
No,
Oh.
You're good. You're Gucci.
we're all good. We're all good on the internet.
So I do all sorts of things like speculative biology, custom creationist standard stuff, and also like general taxonomy videos.
Heck yes. So we
Yeah.
like to see.
Oh yeah, never hurt to learn new things.
No way. That's the lifeblood of the dorky like team right here.
All right. So who here wants to explain to our mini masses here what a bottleneck is? And I don't mean pop.
Listen, man, I'm the secondary guest. I'm on here semi hijacking Jackson's show, so I'm just gonna add tidbits in on primates here and there. So I'm by all means, Jackson, engage us and inform us on the nature and definition of bottlenecks.
Oh, that's right. There were 2 in human history, so maybe you can tell us about those a little bit later, or at least 2.
Yeah.
A bottleneck is when you know the ones I'm referring to.
Yes, yeah. The 2 currently proposed.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
In general, folks and peoples, a bottleneck is when your population, so the available pool of alleles that can be moved around or that are available and can be moved around within that population, can be spread by recombination, are reduced. They're greatly reduced. Most of them are lost, and so you have a phase where there's very little genetic diversity, and you can detect this by sampling the population, and you can see if they're all very similar genetically, then you can infer that population bottleneck has occurred. Maybe this population has split from a larger population recently. Maybe they moved to a new area, but there's not a whole lot of alleles present. But this is also when, or it can also lead to speciation events, like allopatric speciation, when you have a small group moving to a new area. They may have fewer alleles, but the ones that they have are going to be in different proportions than in the main population, and so they can undergo speciation, become a totally new species. And so, anything to add?
Oh man, no, I think
From
you
the
nailed
gifts?
it.
Okay. In reality, when
Nailed
was
it.
the last bottleneck event that we in any animals that we know of that you know of that happened? I know the cheetahs
actually,
like
that's
10,000
what my
years ago.
PowerPoint is all about. That's what my PowerPoint is all about.
Ah,
The one
brought you right into that thing.
Yep.
The last one I know is cheetah things a few years ago.
On my cat evolution video, I briefly touched on cheetahs and their extreme level of genetic diversity in like a passing sentence, but I didn't really go into depth about it, so this is a perfect time to do so.
Cool. If you want to see that video, go down in the description. You can see Evil's link to his channel. Check out that video.
Yeah, absolutely. From a perspective of most recent bottlenecks, the one that I know of that is just right on the forefront of my mind would be that of the Hainan gibbons on Hainan Island off the coast of China. It's off to the south in the South China Sea, and essentially you got around 30 unique species or unique individuals and making up about the last remaining population of Hainan gibbons. And it's really an experiment in biodiversity and in conservation, because one of my speakers at my uni this past year came and spoke, and she works with those gibbons, and she was like, they're functionally extinct as of right now, in two separate populations. But interestingly enough, each of the individual populations that makes up this group of 29 to 32 Hainan gibbons are genetically distant enough from one another that the species may be salvageable with the combined pool of genetic variability between the two subpopulations. So the hope is to do that, is to encourage the breeding between those two groups, and then maybe introduce the some of the I think it's black crested gibbons from the mainland, to see if maybe we can introduce some and get at least some hybridizability going on and save some of the Hainan gibbons genetic diversity. So, but I mean, I don't think it's short of a group of 8. I don't think getting down past 30 is I don't think it gets much more extreme than that.
That's the problem with the Florida Panthers right now. They think there's only like 30 or so of them in existence.
Oh God!
So yeah,
is that where you're supposed to be right now? Is that where you're supposed to be? Where that was happening?
Oh, me?
Yeah, that.
Oh God, no! That would be awesome. No, I'm the species that I was supposed to be studying is like an infestation. The pig-tailed macaques are everywhere.
One, like.
Yep, they're annoying little creatures. I love them. I really wish I'd gotten the opportunity to get out and check on them, but I'm getting updates from my field site manager, and I'm probably gonna, between my PhD and my master's, take some time and go over, and if anything ever opens back up.
Can't wait to call you Dr. Gibbon.
Oh, wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, 6-7 years down the line.
Oh God.
If it ever happens, good God.
So, I know this is part of his slideshow, but what kind of diversity we have if we only had 2 living species, or maybe 8 in human terms, of survivors of a thing 4,000 years ago?
Yeah, what do you think, Jackson? What would that look like? And let's assume, for argument's sake, that we're not dealing with hypothetical, very fringe hypotheses like front-loaded heterozygosity.
Can you see my my thingy?
Not yet.
No. Oh, well, I had to click it, probably. I guess I had to participate a little bit.
A tale of 2 bottlenecks. Very nice.
I know. Gotta get some Dickens in there. So yes. So 2 bottlenecks. I made a very well, I guess it's not brief. That's really about it. That's the entirety of the creationist timeline. Uh, you have maybe 6,000 years ago, or maybe 10,000 years ago. Who knows, and who really cares? The Earth is made, probably. Then about 4,000 years ago, or maybe not. Maybe it's a little bit later or earlier. Again, who really cares?
If you add some E's to those BCEs, add to those BCs. It's just my personal way of doing it. But
Oh well, I think they'll live.
Yeah.
Although
Tower of Babel and Jesus.
Christian history, you do it BC because
Jackson, you just got roasted, dude.
I did.
Well, this is a crisis timeline, so they don't do the E's.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because it's before Jesus. It should be BJ. Oh well, yeah. Rather than
Yeah,
two BJ, three BJ.
I was thinking to myself, I was like, yeah, and that is, I guess, kind of an abbreviated timeline, but honest to God, the hyper expanded, in-depth director's cut edition of AIG's timeline has like 2 more sentences than that. So
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, it's got like Cain and Abel, I guess,
Yeah. Well,
anyway,
I think you missed like the two or three of the C's from the 7 C's of AIG.
Yeah, Jackson.
Oh yeah,
7 C's.
The 7 C's. That sounds like my last semester.
Were all moths and butterflies part of the same Lepidopteran kind?
That's a great question,
Yes.
Random Evo Times, because
they're both in the order Lepidoptera.
What we should see versus what we do see.
Do it.
Let's read what it says.
Oh, I'm sorry. My internet keeps going out on me. So if there were, to answer your question, if there were a flood, or if there had been a global flood, then we should see bottlenecks, as this picture implies, in all organisms. As you can see, there's a palm tree, a butterfly. I don't really know what this third one is. Maybe do you guys recognize it?
I think it's a sponge or maybe a pool. I think it's some sort of sessile, non-bilateral.
Maybe an amoeba.
Maybe an amoeba. I have no idea what that is. And then Triceratops, it looks like a velvet worm and then a mushroom.
I think that's the Ceratops.
But I have no idea what.
And mushroom. That's your subject of interest.
No, but annelid is a phylum. No, kinds can jump all over the place.
That's a whole other podcast.
Absolutely.
Indeed. So, so we should see bottlenecks in all organisms. It shouldn't just be if you look sort of either above or below, you just see these lineages sort of flowering out, which is what we see under evolution. I mean, that's what we see in reality. But creationists expect there should be a bottleneck in all species on the planet, in all created kinds. And we should be able to test this by sequencing their genes and finding the very, very low genetic diversity. Well, we don't see that. There are certain organisms we can find that do have bottlenecks. And as, of course, everyone mentioned here, the cheetah. We have the cheetah, which underwent a genetic bottleneck about 10,000 years ago, so coincident with the end of the last ice age, when there were lots of large mammals that went extinct. Cheetahs greatly reduced in population number, and there are only around 20,000 of them today. And they're as you guys said, they're very similar genetically. They have lots of genetic disorders like low sperm viability and kinked tails and other things.
The extinction event that you're referencing, I think it has a name. The end quaternary extinction.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I believe you're right. So there you go. There's your cheetah example.
I guess the one good thing about the cheetahs is they can have organ transplants no problem because they never get rejected.
There you go. Yeah, it's interesting that the cheetahs underwent a bottleneck 10,000 years ago, and yet they're still having the genetic disorders, and yet.
And how many of them survived? Like 10,000 or something? At least a few thousand?
It's probably at least a few hundred. Probably at least a few hundred. But the creationists would have you believe that 2 of them got off the ark, right? We don't see that sort of magnitude of bottleneck.
Probably not even cheetahs themselves, but the cat kind.
Yeah,
right. We should see the bottleneck.
That should have this bottleneck. All felids should have it, and actually, all life forms should have it, except ones that are in water, because for some reason they could somehow survive being dumped on tons of fresh water, even though most of them were salt water, and many of them couldn't accommodate to the now deep water habitat.
Yeah, luckily the
steam cooking.
Yeah, luckily the fish don't have bottlenecks because they can survive out beyond the ark. All the fish and sharks and stuff, they're perfectly fine because they can survive.
Yeah, definitely no one needs to worry about our arthropods, members of Arthropoda and Panarthropoda either, because obviously they were just cozy in their dens on those big floating forests that were being ballistically detonated by like laser targeted lightning.
But no, not to mention our not to mention our plants.
Yeah, no large.
Plants don't matter. Arthropods don't matter. They don't have nostrils. They don't matter. Only dogs, cats, and cows matter. Nothing else matters.
It's really sad. Like, if they cared more about the actual biodiversity on this earth, they might start actually seeing that the kind system is flawed.
Yeah, well, good luck with that one. Anyways, Galapagos tortoises. They also underwent a bottleneck. At least the ones on the island of Isabela did.
How long ago?
As it happens, this occurred about 88,000 years ago. And what's interesting is, if you look at these tortoises genetically, you can see the remnants of this bottleneck. They have this one population has very low genetic diversity relative to the other populations on Isabela. And what's even more interesting is there is geological evidence of this volcanic eruption, which is corroborating the genetic evidence. So you have both the genetic evidence and the geological evidence, which both paint the same picture, which is of an ancient bottleneck.
And you said that was 80,000 years ago? That's
88,000 years ago, yes.
Huh. And that long ago, and there are still technical problems. Interesting.
Yeah, we can still see the evidence of the genetic bottleneck, and so yeah, there you have. Even still, you can see the evidence of it. And the other one that I chose was the northern elephant seal. These underwent a bottleneck in the 1800s due to poaching, and so they're definitely. We also affirmed the lack of allozyme diversity in the species, in contrast to southern elephant seal, which, though similarly exploited, never fell below 1,000 animals. So yeah, this was just in the past 200 years, and they're coming back from a population bottleneck, which we can detect. Now, so we have those. Yeah, so much more recent. So we can see there are some examples of organisms who went through bottlenecks either recently or rather distantly. But we shouldn't just see this sporadically in organisms which correlate with particular environments and particular times. We should see this for all organisms. All of them on this planet should have it, and they don't. And why is that? Well, because there was no global flood. There was no Noah's Ark. But if you follow Answers in Genesis, they have ways around it, because genes only matter as evidence until they don't anymore. Then you can just make crap up, right? I
figured it out when Noah's Ark was. I figured it all out now. You see, Noah went back in time to 600 million years ago, to when we had snowball / slushball Earth, when the Earth was covered with snow or water, frozen snow water, and he took all the animals all the singular cell, multiple cell animals there, put them in the Ark then, because they would all fit then in 700 BC, because everything was like so small back then.
You know what? That's as good a theory as any.
The thing is that it really genuinely has the same amount of support. Like the wildest deal with the bottleneck isn't just the lack of evidence for a bottleneck and all the species that need it, but the sheer proliferation in others that we also see when given the opportunity environmentally. We see these massive radiations. This kind of stuff is going on right now in coral reefs that have transitioned into being protected areas, like around Thailand and like Micronesia and stuff like that. And organisms that were previously never seen there are showing up, and they're distinct from their relatives at other reefs because they've suddenly got all these new resources to exploit.
Exactly. Yeah. And one of my favorite things that Dan Cardinale showed us, because he's reading Jensen's book, is how Jensen basically just superimposes phylogenetic trees of different clades over like the past few centuries. Over a timeline that says like the past few centuries. And it's like, this very clearly shows a radiation event not correlated with the flood or anything else.
It's only the most rigorous methodology for Jensen and company, of course.
Yeah. I mean, their whole... The idea, the created heterozygosity is a what do they call it? A rescuing device, because it's this completely ridiculously ad hoc assertion that all of the genetic variability existed in the common ancestor of these organisms, and yet they all ended up with a nested hierarchy of genes following the arc.
Yeah, I've yet to see too from the gang, from the Brain Trust, a single example of a creationist predicting, as they so often propose, the existence of nested hierarchies and transitional species. Yeah. When it's not just that they didn't predict it, it's that they vitriolically rejected it from the moment of the idea's conception until about a year ago.
I know.
I remember one of the videos that you were replying to we call the Brain Trust, that they talked about how we're not talking about the diversity after the arc. The real diversity apparently was in the creation event, and that kept the same diversity from creation to the arc, and then now they're diverse after the arc.
Yep.
Yeah, because they have to do with two bottlenecks, not one, two. There was the creation bottleneck. There was a limited set of diversity, which existed for about between 2,000 and 6,000 years, I guess. Who cares, really? They're just numbers. And then, for some reason, whatever set of genetic diversity was in these organisms, did God have to miraculously put it back into them? The pair that went on the ark for each
or
kind?
Maybe they were all during the pre-flood world, there was all the animals had all the animals always never diversified. They were all the same.
I guess they all retained the entirety of genetic diversity within the eventual species.
Because the Earth before the flood, was all awesome and
I know it's all magical and stuff. Yeah, it's such a hilariously ludicrous idea. I would love, and they're never going to do it. They're never going to do it. It's one thing to make a phylogeny and then just superimpose the past 2,000 years over it. It's another to actually show what, if we're doing a parsimony analysis of the genes within some kind, whatever they consider to be a kind, do a parsimony analysis for the genes in that kind. Draw up your phylogeny and show me how completely non-parsimonious this phylogeny would be.
I have a hypothesis. What if the original kinds were created with many different pairs of a few times the amount of chromosomes as the modern species?
They would have to.
Yep.
They would have to have so many chromosomes to hold all of the variation.
Well, and you reach enormous levels of anti-parsimony, I guess would literally be the only way of putting it, when you consider the variety of chromosomes and of genetic diversity that we see within genera, within family, within order, all the way up through the tree of life. And there's no rhyme or reason to it if you don't look at it under the lens of descent with modification.
Right.
Yeah, I just thought something real fast. You know how this year we're having a little virus problem,
Yeah, it's just a light little bug,
But
Light virus thing.
Yeah, if our what would be a problem if we had a small genetic, if a virus came around and we had such small genetic diversity?
We'd be screwed.
Yeah. Well, the Tasmanian devils and all of the chiropterans inflicted with white nose syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
White nose disease. I don't remember this
the fungus.
Yeah, it is some kind of fungus, but maybe it's I don't know what the white nose thing where they get fungus up in there.
They won't let you wear your shoes into caves and stuff like that if you've been out of the country or whatever.
Yeah. Which, as they should. It's, it's absolutely decimating colonies everywhere. And part of the problem is exactly what you're talking about, where you've got all these species that are living in close quarters for one, and two are all very closely related, and thus have been impacted by inbreeding and founder effect from square one. And so it's just it's like dropping a match in a propane factory.
Yeah, it is hilarious to watch them try, and this getting back to what we were talking about earlier, and also on your show after my debate, is there are no creationists who are broadly familiar with biodiversity. No. I don't think there are any. Jean Leitner, kind of, and I think what's funny about it is she's a veterinarian or a vet tech or something like that. But she has had some classes in maybe biodiversity, maybe she took zoology, a comparative anatomy, maybe a couple classes like that, where she had to come sort of face to face with the fact that all of life isn't dogs, cats, and cows, you know?
Yep.
And which is what makes it so funny reading her articles on kinds, because she has to use the sliding scale. She goes everywhere from an order, for some organisms like Scandentia is an entire order, which is one kind. And then on the other hand, she goes all the way down to species. She says the Thylacinus cynodesmus, I think, is one kind. This one species is a kind.
Well, of course, really, the only species I figured they do with the human species, obviously a different kind.
I think they do it with red pandas also, because they're distinct enough from the other mustaloids that they get their own kind.
Oh, God help them too if they have access to or rather gave a hoot about the entire Permian fossil record. What are they going to do with the Dicynodonts? What are they doing with all of the therapsids and the synapse? Where are they going?
There is a single in the entirety of creationist literature. There is just one baraminological analysis of therapsids, and it's not even about therapsids.
I'm actually shocked there's even one.
It's about the Cassiids. The Cassiids are a group of very early synapsids, so we're not even to the therapsids yet.
Right.
So you have Cassiids, and then the Pelycosaurs, the Dimetrodon, Edaphosaurus, and then you get towards the therapsids. So he only looks. M. Aaron is his name, or her name. We have no idea who this person is. Just M, the letter M, Aaron. And so M. Aaron looks at only the Cassiids, removes several Cassiids because they're not complete fossils, complete skeletons, and then does an analysis and says, well, these group together to the exclusion of these other ones, so they must form a kind. Of course they group together. That's why they're called Cassiids and not something else.
Yeah, I never understood what that says. Which animal, before and after, did they die? Did the species die off in the flood, or they got on the ark and then die right afterwards?
I am continuously impressed at the lack of attention that the whole concept of loading one of each kind of fauna, like literally prior to the Pleistocene, onto the Ark, and then having them die off like 6 months after the Ark hits the side of the mountain.
I'm thinking he has like a machine gun and he's just like mowing them down as they're getting off the Ark or something. You know,
I feel like I changed my mind.
Yeah, Michelangelo is like, dude, it was a typo. I did not mean take all of the dinosaurs. You're gonna have to do something about this. And Noah's like, sweet, awesome. I'm so glad.
Well, they do taste. Well, dinosaurs do taste like chicken.
There you go.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. That's what everything else ate.
I've heard like Kent Hovind or someone say that fossils didn't form after the flood. However, how would the newly arrived dinosaur kinds actually get into the fossil record if all of the fossils were formed?
What they tend to say is all the fossils that we have, all the fossiliferous strata, is either flood. No, wait, that's really it. It's just all in the flood. All the fossils.
Or sometimes maybe the quick ice age that happened right after the flood.
Or the quick ice age, which killed some mammoths and some woolly rhinos, but that was about it. They say the dinosaurs that survived the flood, they say, ended up in as dragon legends. We're gonna ignore just how hilariously stupid that is, because there are the dragon legends are so far removed from anything at all, like anything realistic. And they also vary with culture, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah,
the Chinese dragon legend is different from European.
And you also got I used to be so into the concept of dragon legends being indicative of some kind of lost dinosaur species that would still be around when I was in early middle school. And looking at the amphitheaters and the Asian lung and the European dragons and the drakes to the south and all sorts of different, you've got giant sea serpent legends from North America and totally different sea serpent legends coming from Australia. And you look at all of that and I was so hype to take that into consideration and to be like, oh man, we need to look at this with some scrutiny. And all it took was someone saying, yeah, but what about all the shapeshifters and the demons and the
the Egyptian dragons are lions with snake necks, aren't they?
Yeah, serpopards. Yeah, and they've also got Apophis, who's the chaos snake who eats the sun. And so it's all of a sudden it becomes abundantly clear that the only reason why any of that seems even remotely compelling is because it's looked at in a vacuum. When you consider the fact that I can't think of a single culture off the top of my head that doesn't involve human-animal hybrids in their mythos at some point, be it minotaurs or what's the one, the skinwalkers from North America, the various kinds of hybrid shape-shifting deities that come from the animistic legends in South Africa. And the reason is because all people are just furries, kind of. Everyone is just kind of into doing weird stuff with incorporating animals into their life. Can't help it. And so you see that, and then you're just okay, wait. The dragon stuff is just humans being humans. It's not the existence of extant members, as devastating as that fact is, because I would love it if it was the opposite. I would love for there to be, a Mokele Mbembe lurking around in the Congo, but they're just...
Oh, man.
Yeah, well, at least they're luckier than the plesiosaurs that when the floodwaters went down, they got stuck in several lakes around the world.
I love too that that's exclusively plesiosaurs. What about our boys, the mosasaurs? Where are the ichthyosaurs?
Where are the all of the ancient sea turtles and things? Where are the nothosaurs? Yeah, and right, the ichthyosaurs, the mosasaurs. Where, and they don't really care because it's not sexy. These are not sexy animals. Plesiosaur, that's a sexy animal, but who really cares about our feelings, right?
We already have ichthyosaurs. They're called dolphins now.
Yeah, well, yeah, fair enough. I mean,
oh my goodness,
I can't believe that
Or basilosaurids, that'd be cool.
Oh, basilosaurid would be amazing.
Although that would also be terrifying. Could you imagine gigantic carnivorous? Wait.
Just
Laughs in orca.
Like, yeah. Well,
between mosasaurs, megalodons, and placoderms.
oh God, I love placoderms so much. I know placoderms are like the what's the term? It's like they're really basic, right? For like in the paleontology world, if
They're
you're like
the virgins of the fish.
yeah, if you're like I love placoderms, people are like, oh, do you really? Yeah, that's
I
really
really like placoderms.
yeah.
I
Really.
wonder who'd win in a fight: the placoderms, the megalodons, the mosasaurs, and whatever the basal whale forms were. They all got.
Well, I mean, there were a number of placoderms that didn't even have jaws, so they probably wouldn't do too well.
I'm giving it to the basosaurids just because of their, they've probably, given that they're mammals, they've probably got a higher cognitive level than at least your megalodon and your mosasaur.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine placoderms were like winning any Nobel Prizes.
They're just like, I'm gonna eat some mud today. I'm gonna eat some mud tomorrow. It's gonna be good. Just a little Bothria lepus. I'm just doing my thing.
Probably if the teeth were strong enough, probably the best they could do is like they break the teeth on their shells, like ow.
Yeah, broke pod hunting and high cognition, woke plate face, plate skin, plate.
Oh my goodness.
Go ahead.
This kind of ties into the point about like dragons being dinosaurs, but I want to mention this. Sure, you could mistake like poets like me to be what are called cockatrices, but there's actually some key differences because cockatrices generally are hybrids between chickens and generally snakes. However, other reptiles can also be mixed in there.
Yeah, cockatrices are awesome. Actually, they really and truly, you're right. The cockatrice with derived theropod like 1-to-1 ratio isn't appreciated enough because some of our Archaeopteryx and even like Caudipteryx and Bapiosaurus, but that's pretty close to a cockatrice if I do say so myself.
I'd say that the closest dinosaurs to being cockatrices would be the extinct Scansoriopterids, specifically the ones with gliding membranes like E.G. They independently evolved a form of gliding like Microraptors like me. However, instead of using feathered wings, they use bat-like or pterosaur-like wings.
Jackson, I just got roasted.
Hey, it happened to me too. It happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
You know your stuff, dude.
That's the thing. You can't know every subject about everything. That's why we have specific details, of study.
Yeah, Random Evo Times is killing it. He knows his stuff.
Yeah.
I guess I do.
There was actually another. There was another one of those of the membrane Scansoriopterids discovered. I think it was last year. Amboteryx, and what this reveals, I think, is that you kind of think. I don't know how many people think maybe we've seen it all. Okay, it's a variation on a theropod. All right, that's cool. But this is not just a variation on a theropod. This is a novel way of gliding in theropods, not with feathers. So they did have feathers, but they used wing membranes like bats or pterosaurs, which is just bizarre. And it kind of makes you wonder how many ecological niches did the dinosaurs occupy, and how many are missing from the fossil record? How many will we never know about?
And that's the part that's such a bummer. And given that the Mesozoic is comparatively so much more recent than the Paleozoic, it's even more of a bummer, in my opinion, to know that we already have a heavy bias towards the Cenozoic and then the Mesozoic. It's like how many wild niches were filled by organisms doing absolutely insane stuff in like the Permian. Because it's a freaking long ass time. Sorry, Random Evo Times. I'm trying not to swear as much, but
Language.
It's a long time to be like, bopping around, reacting to your environment and being naturally selected upon.
Think about bacteria. Just think about bacteria for a minute. These things have extremely short generation times. They have very high or very rapid adaptability. and they have all this huge range of physiological abilities. I mean, there are bacteria and archaeans that live on the bottom of the ocean, that live on the highest mountaintops, and they've developed all sorts of different adaptations for living in these environments. And how many will we never know about?
Yeah. And that's so much. The level to which that's amplified, you're right, to like microscopic organisms is absolutely insane. Did you?
Yeah.
I'm sure you saw this, Jackson, but just for everyone else out there in the ether, there was some work done very recently on I cannot for the life of it was some abyssal plane, but I can't remember which one it specifically was. But they went out there and took sediment samples from a couple of meters below kind of the basement level of an abyssal plane, right? And so we're already talking like 3.5, 3.1 miles down underneath the water, and then an additional couple of meters into the sediment itself. And they actually managed to pull out and revive microscopic life. And we're talking like over 100 million year old colonies down here. It was absolutely insane. And I remember thinking about that and thinking, all right, it's just plain feasible that you could have places like Mars that look ridiculously barren, but somewhere lurking underneath the sediment where it's just a little bit moist and you've got stuff doing things.
Stuff and things, Lori.
Stuff and things, Carl.
Is stuff and things bigger or smaller than a kind?
Oh, way bigger.
Oh.
That's some other thing that creationists will never discuss is the diversity of bacteria and archaeans.
Yeah,
it's just never gonna happen. They don't even want to like acknowledge the fact that these exist. Pretty much.
But Jackson, they're still bacteria. They might change, but they're still bacteria.
Yeah, is just so funny because they will not accept beneficial mutations, even though we've observed them in bacterial populations in the lab. Sanford just flat lied about
Sanford is a huckster. I'm sorry, but there's no way. Reading his material just in Contested Bones, he's a huckster. There's no way that he could learn as much as he did to write that text and still manage to misrepresent it to the degree that he does.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Jensen, on the other hand, no, I'm not sure he.
Yeah,
I'm not sure if he actually learned anything during the writing of his book.
Yeah, Jensen seemed like he hit a big time lucky break at old Harvard town.
Yeah, it's like maybe there was some nepotism going on or something. I don't know.
Who knows?
But that Punnett Square that he provided, or that Dan showed us the picture of, it's like it gets worse the longer you look at it, because this is a guy whose degree is in, what is it, cell biology?
Yeah.
If you don't know how a Punnett Square works and your degree is in cell biology, you go back to square one.
It's literally like I could have seen that on Our Hole Up, right? Like, or just no. Because the fact is, you're right. You give it 5 seconds of investigation, and it just gets worse as time elapses.
Yeah.
Speaking of diagrams, I've come up with the impossible trinity of baraminology.
Ooh, do tell.
So the first corner is there needs to be as few kinds as possible because, the boat has a limited number of space and resources that it needs to accommodate for animals. The second corner of this impossible trinity is the kinds need to have as much diversity as possible in order to accommodate for their modern descendants. The third part of that possible trinity is that the kinds need to be, survivable. They can't just be like a pile of chromosomes. So, you can only pick 2.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, they put themselves into a bind, or the creationists do, because the creationists, you're right, they have to book the arc. The arc is a limited space. We know how large it was, what the diameter or what the width and length are, right? So there's only so much space we can put these organisms, meaning there can only be so many kinds, so many pairs on the arc. plus the clean ones. And so with
that reminds me. Did they kill off all the other 6 pairs of the clean animals, or did they leave them off, only one of them, and have them for the more? Did the clean animals get more diversity?
Well,
limited it was.
Both, because I mean they were using the clean animals for food, but also they had to keep some alive because they had to repopulate after they got off. So
like they got more. They got 3 more diversity points than the unclean animals.
right. Yeah, but yeah, you're right. They're in a bind of their own creation, and they really can't get out of it because if they want, because on the one hand they're either creating like hundreds of species, in some groups over a few thousand years, or even just dozens of species. They're expecting speciation rates that just don't exist. They literally just don't exist. And they expect us to just say, no, that seems reasonable. We can have this too. No, we can't. That's not how it works.
It was something for longer gestational animals like the pachyderms. It was something like a new species every 1.5 generations or something absolutely insane like that. I can't. It might have been you that actually told me that, Jackson. I can't remember.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. Bill Nye's very low estimate was 11 species per day, and they laugh at, and I've seen them laugh at it. But it's that's a underestimate.
Yeah, that's
a very low underestimate.
They would have to breed breed rabbits and guppies, have 20 children at least.
Oh yeah. All the members of the proboscidean kind would need to pump out another baby every day,
and then all of a sudden have quickly grow up the next day. Okay, quick. They probably grew faster than soap children grow up on soaps.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, again, my specialty is with macroscopic animals, with particularly the primates, who are notorious for having these super long gestation rates. But I can't, while that's a big issue, is having these long developmental periods that just takes forever for organisms to reach sexual maturity and then reproduce. It's the complete opposite problem for arthropods and things of that nature, and sponges and barnacles and cnidarians and all of these animals that, while their reproductive window is short, you've got to get hundreds of thousands of species in such a short amount of time.
Because they love to say it's the kind is about the level of family. The rove beetle family, Staphylinidae, has 60,000 members in it. 60,000 species, and you have 4,000 years.
There's a reason there are no entomologists working at the Arcade counter. Let's put it that way.
There is one entomology, paleontologist who works for the Discovery Institute, but he's the only one I know about. I don't know about anybody else. Yeah.
Of course, that doesn't count when it comes to the human family level. And we're not on that family.
Well, yeah, it's all tossed out the window. I would love, if there were any chimp creationists, some of them some chimpanzees buy into creationism, but they're oh, no, the chimps are the created kind. You humans are with the orangutans and the gorillas.
It's that Futurama skit with Dr. Banjo, where I refuse to believe that humans and orangutans share a common ancestor.
Right. Yeah.
Oh,
exactly.
I think I said before I made a joke about this. I'll say it again, but if in a few 100,000 years, give or take, if we're on Mars, and there's still creationists on Mars, and they say, if we came from Earthlings, how come they're still Earthlings?
Yeah, no, I mean that's really the logic that's imposed. Some of the so I think I can't remember if it's Discovery Institute. I think it is one of the big three: Creation.com, ICR, and AIG. One of them is yes, humans are animals, and yes, they're primates, but they're separate from all of the other primates, and they're unique in that. And then the second grade is that they're mammals, but not primates. And then AIG is the last grade, and they're no, they're not even animals. But I know it's either ICR or Creation.com. One of them is actually just chill with humans being primates, which, big ups for that. That's nice to see. We love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, that's interesting though, because when you when you label any category or label any group of organisms as some name, you are implicitly assuming relatedness among them. So it's very strange to be like, this is a primate, but this is not related to primates.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make any sense. And again, I mean, I don't know how many times I have to bring this up to the gang, to the Brain Trust, but it's like, there is no way that you can accept genetics and its relationship with relatedness. The fact that genetics does necessitate relatedness, it dictates what is and what is not related just by laws of inheritance, and not include humans with the other hominoids if you're going to stay standardized. You just can't do it.
Yeah, it would be sort of like them arguing, well, we allow Panthera tigris to be related to like Panthera leo, but not not to the jaguar, even though they're all the same species or they're all the same genus. It's like, okay, or why don't they make an argument that, well, the lion has these genetic differences from the tiger, so they're not related? Why don't they make that? Well, because they just don't care.
Because they can breed together for for two animals that can't breed. They can't breed anymore. That's why.
Well, I would be interested to see some experiments with
what's called the liger and the Tigon or something like that.
Tigon, yeah. Well, we can hybridize our DNA very easily with both chimps and gorillas, which is actually why in I think it was the 60s, it wasn't yet known who was more closely related to who, because all of our DNA hybridizes so readily.
Yeah.
Oh, and the thing is that they like to point to the Ivanovsky, the classic Russian example of the Russian guy he was a artificial insemination expert. Like he basically pioneered a lot of the science, and the way that he got into it was he was artificially inseminating like prized racehorses in Europe and in the United States.
Okay.
He was the first guy who was like, okay, let's try and breed a human Z. And so he really did attempt it. He tried fertilizing female chimpanzees with male sperm and did not get a pregnancy. He tried it on 4 different individuals and did attempt artificial insemination. But again, because this was way back in, like you were saying, back in the 60s and the 70s, if memory serves, the kind of artificial insemination that we're talking about isn't the modern type where they actually insert the sperm into the egg, but rather put them in a dish together and swirl it all around.
And hope they all get together.
Right. And the problem with that is the gatekeeper of the egg, the zona pellucida, is the primary problem when it comes to reproductive isolation between the primates. That's the one that's like, no, you can't come in. So it's hypothesized right now in our modern year of our Lord 2020 that there's really just not that much stopping someone if they wanted to artificially inseminate one with the other between humans and members of genus Pan.
Well, if they could, I don't know if they've done it before, but with Pan and gorillas before, because this is for this point. But if they can do artificial insemination of those two, then probably that we can too. Then we're even closer than those two are.
Yeah. The thinking is that if they could do it, we could as well. Yes.
There is, and I'm gonna. If you didn't already know this, prepare to have your mind warped. We can actually fertilize hamster eggs.
Oh,
briefly, but we can.
Are they viable after?
No, it's only like for 8. Is it like 8 days, something like that? Where this is actually a test. This is used to determine. Actually, we don't use it. Clinics use this to determine sperm viability. Is that they remove the zona pellucida from the I think it's Assyrian hamster eggs, and if you can fertilize it, then that's a test of sperm quality. And so we can actually do that. And RJ and I discussed that in the Rockshire there.
Oh God!
Because I didn't know that, but Georgia Purdom deigned to mention it. She's like, we recognize that humans can fertilize hamster eggs when the zona pellucida is removed, but it has to get to the blastocyst stage before they're like, okay, fine, it doesn't. Okay, fertilization, no, that's not enough. If it has to get past the blastocyst stage.
These are the same people that are, though, like hardcore having a stance on reproductive rights, right? Like life begins at conception. I mean, are you serious? That's absolutely insane.
Well, they're only half humans. They don't count. I guess.
It's because our common ancestor with rodents was like 80 million years ago.
Yeah, it's insane. So here's something additionally interesting. This is all hearsay, but we'll see if something comes of it. Allegedly in China, they've actually managed to get a human rhesus macaque to the embryonic stage, I believe.
Really?
Now there is nothing again, that's why I'm saying it's very preliminary, because it's literally, or rather not even preliminary, it's hearsay, because a bunch of Spanish embryologists basically came out of China and they're like, yeah, we're doing it in China because we can't do it anywhere else. There's no paper on it, nothing like that. It's mostly coming out of China, and it's like they're like, this is what we're doing, heads up.
I honestly hope they write a paper on it. I really do.
I do as well. I don't think they probably will. I think the whole idea is that it's for like xenotransplantation purposes. So like, because if you could grow a rhesus macaque and house human organs in it, the idea is that you might be able to get something that's more easily transplantable when compared to something like a pig.
Well,
that's fair. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Depending on the diversity, I guess everything should be every animal should out the ark. Every animal should be breedable via every other mammal with no problems, right?
Different its own kind, you would think so. I guess.
Yeah.
It all be virtually identical clones.
All bears should be able to breed with each other because only one bear on the ark. So yeah.
Well, to be fair, bears are a weird case. They do breeding with each other like cross species as it is, which is why there's what do they call it? The cloud model for bear.
Yeah, it's something insane.
Yeah, bears are weird. It's like the grizzly bears and polar bears are crossing and all this stuff, and it's like, hey, don't you guys know not to do that? Be species. You're a species now. Act like it.
Yeah, well, and there's that whole concept, and then there's the idea that like organisms that have been geographically like separated and isolated for millennia can just accidentally run into one another and just make babies, and it's like, okay, nature, bad animal, bad species.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it on your slideshow. You mentioned the Tower of Babel and languages and stuff. Is it like different languages like birds have, are like part of the pre-speciation pre-zygotic speciation thing? Different.
Think about that. What about their behaviors? Mannequins, which are a type of bird, they're in South America. I don't know if they're anywhere else. But I read The Evolution of Beauty by Richard Prum, and he talks about the evolution of lecking, which is a behavior. They dance. These mannequins or these little birds, they do dances to woo the females into mating with them. But he talks about the evolution of lecking behavior in mannequins. And so you're right. You brought up a very interesting point. What was the ancestral behavior for mannequins or for any organism? Did like the fungus? What is it? The one that like makes ants climb up leaves.
Cordyceps?
Ophiocordyceps. Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, Ophiocordyceps. You have to think about what was the behavior when these organisms have very different behaviors within a kind. What was the original, and how did they transmit that?
Well, I think a lot of their answers. I mean, to play creationist advocate here, I'm thinking their answer is probably going to be the same as when it's like when they whine about how things like migratory instincts evolve, which is like they're just programmed to do it that way.
If dinosaurs like me again, it's good to know that we actually matter.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. They would just say, "Oh, it was just in there. It's just a gene or something."
It's all pre-programmed, and then they would turn it around and say, "How do you explain how it evolved stepwise?" Which, of course, absurd.
After so many years, they lost that information of migration.
Yeah, really. After all that information loss.
Yeah, I don't know. Creationists are whack. It's all wacky stuff. I mean, it. Yeah, but that would be something else interesting. Is you're right? They would just kind of go, well, you can't explain it. Actually, well, there are selective pressures for some things that are relatively easy to explain, but there are some things that are less easy, which is fine. We don't have to have an answer for everything.
No, of course not. But the thing is that I found, at least in my very limited experience in academia, that very few things have no answer given whatsoever. Like oftentimes there's nothing definitive for, in fact, I would say there's nothing definitive for most of life's questions. But there are very good guesses informed by very, very robust data sets. And that whole thing is a gradient. So like, as far as how do things like migratory instincts evolve, I would imagine looking into that there are quite a few hypotheses, and a lot of them probably work in their own unique ways. As for which one did happen, like that's something that I think we would have a hard time proving, given it's so behavioral. But
speaking of selective pressures, I did a big rant about that on Facebook about people saying that we should let this virus thing again, that we should let our immune system handle it, and just deal with it. Yeah, we did that in the Black Plague time. Like, I thought of us died.
Yeah, you can't pick and choose which pathologies you want to fight, right? Like humans are uniquely, we're in a position of unique kind of health, I suppose you would almost say, just because it's like we cure everything that we're capable of curing. You can't just turn your back on people now. Like
be like, we did natural selection. We did that natural selection in the before, and like, some of us survived, but not all of us.
Let's go back to like total 3 million population.
Yeah.
Right
where
now,
everyone is just ridiculously like hard to kill. And the second someone isn't, they're gone.
Right. Yeah.
It was not that, it's just, it's real Homo sapiens hours right now. Like the time is for us to help each other out. Like we're too far gone on the altruism and empathy, path. You can't back out of that skill tree.
I need to leave now.
Okay. Well, you have a nice night.
It was nice talking to you.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming on.
Come visit again when you can.
Okay. Bye.
See you.
You're right. It's you're right in that if we're gonna have, I think they only say natural selection for this because now we've come to a virus where we don't have a simple solution to it. You can't just go get a shot, not yet anyways. And we have to think about protecting each other, and people are stupid and selfish. And if I feel mildly inconvenienced by it, well, then by God, just let natural selection take care of them.
Yeah, it's absolutely absurd. These are the same folks, though, that, turn around and cry that vaccinations don't work, which are formulated on the same principles.
And they're saying it's only killing like 1%, like 1% of the population. Imagine how much it would kill if we weren't taking these precautions.
Well, the funny thing, one thing I think is so funny about it is even people who accept that vaccines work, even them I've seen it tends to be more conservative ones, but even those who accept the vaccines work are like, I feel mildly inconvenienced by wearing a mask. So natural selection.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, should we do that for smallpox and polio and tuberculosis and typhoid and everything else? And they're like, well, no, we have vaccines for these.
And not to mention that these are the same folks that were the absolute first ones to launch the battle cry of any kind of, and while I do agree this is indeed capable of being a slippery slope, these are the folks that are like, well, if you tamper with genetics to keep kids from getting, fucking cystic fibrosis or something like that, that's playing God. And then it's like,
good. We have become God, Homo Deus. Here we are.
And it's like, you know what? Like, if that is like the moniker that we have to take in order to get rid of cystic fibrosis, maybe that's the play. Like, I just don't think. I mean, obviously, that is a huge, can of worms to open up. But I'm just saying, like, these are the same folks that they're just so inconsistent in their ideology.
Yeah, I think if you want to do this, if they're on the one hand, they're like, let us have our personal liberties. Okay, have your personal liberty. If you want to make it so your kid's not going to get cystic fibrosis, fine. If you don't want to do that, don't do it. That's
Yeah.
on you. It's your
But-
personal choice.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
But according to these people, I feel sorry for doctors because if people can't wear their mask for 20 minutes in stores, the doctors feel they can't wear them for 12 hours in surgery.
Oh, it
You're right.
drives me absolutely crazy. Like, absolutely bonkers to see, people just crying like big, gigantic, oversized babies because they have to wear a piece of cloth in front of their face while they browse Walmart and get their
Oh my
box of
goodness,
berries.
Erica! I have had so many people come through the store who are like doom preppers,
Oh, good
and
God!
they're telling me the mask is the mark of the demon.
Oh,
It's like we're getting close to the revelation every day, and that it's like which is so funny.
I thought
Because-
after MySpace it was Facebook, and then it was Twitter, and then it was Obama, and then it was like TikTok. It's like, can the beast not like settle on a mark?
I mean, please, dear goodness, it's what is it? I love the there's a story about like people getting like implants where it's like microchips.
Yeah.
I love that. I just think that's so funny because everything since ever has been the mark of the demon. Metal music was the mark of the demon. I'm sure at one point, like women driving cars was the mark of the demon. It's always something.
And also they say, I'm breathing in my own carbon dioxide, and they say, if we're not, then how can it stop the virus? Well, you do know that molecules are smaller than viruses. Viruses are small, but molecules are a lot smaller than viruses.
No, they think if I can't see it, it's not real.
Yeah. Yep.
There was that guy on Fox News who was like, I haven't washed my hands in 10 years because I can't see anything on them. It's like,
these are adults that actually just never pass the object permanent stage of like childhood. They just don't get it.
Like when I first saw that trending on Twitter, I thought, this is a joke.
No, that's been me for the past 4 years. I swear to God. Like the past 4 years, something will come up and I'll be like, please let it be a joke this time, and it never is.
Nothing. I'm almost surprised like the Onion even exists anymore because reality has become Onion.
In South Park, poor Trey and Matt Parker and Trey Parker and Matt Stone. Yeah, those poor guys. They've got nothing to write about. It's they can't top it.
It's like everything is just so stupid.
It's like just an actual idiot.
Everything is more stupid than you just can't make it up, and that's actually part of why like I don't read I don't read fiction stuff because I think nonfiction is just what reality is. How reality works is just so much more interesting to me. It's so much like funnier than whatever someone could cook up. And I think the woman on was it Fox News where she's like trying to drink like a hamburger through a plastic straw.
Oh my God.
And
Oh my God, I saw that. I saw the one too where this couple was out. They had their masks on and they were like pouring the wine into the mask, like as one would like aerate a glass of wine. It was absolutely bonkers. And I remember seeing that and I was just like, this is the darkest timeline. You can't go darker than this. But of course, tomorrow I'll wake up and I'll be pleasantly surprised again.
I've heard something. You know how some countries are on the second wave now? Are we still on our first wave or are we hit the second wave yet in America?
I think we're technically on the second wave because we had like a sufficient sufficient decrease, but I don't know.
I think that's
Yeah,
good. I was afraid we were still on our first wave.
Well, the first one was, it went up and then it was kind of going down because everyone was enforcing masks, and then we as a country are a bunch of crybabies, and so now it has dramatically risen, and we are now the COVID capital of the entire planet. So good for us.
We're number one. We're number one.
USA.
We collectively stomped our foot on the ground and was like, you can't tell me what to do. Like, it's like a Homer Simpson bit. It's like,
yeah, that's my friend.
You can't tell me what to do. I'm gonna cross this line.
I think it was one of my friends who sent me a meme that it was like a bunch of signs. Yes, here it is. It's like this couple standing next to signs, and it's like the sign says no shirt, no shoes, no service, no smoking, no vaping, no weapons, no pets. But then at the very end, it says no masks, no entry, and they say they're not going to tell us what to do.
Yeah.
It's like, really?
Yeah.
It's just one big Ben Garrison cartoon where everyone is just acting like a giant. I can't believe it. The thing that was probably the highlight this year for me was when, to get very lightly political, individuals who would identify themselves as perhaps more conservative were like, you know what? Sometimes you just got to die for the economy. And I was like, are you what? Like, when did this become a preacher?
Because that's what they were saying Obama was going to do. They're like, he's going to put or RJ's always saying that. He's like, under Obama, they're going to put grandma in death camps. And then under Trump, well, grandma's not really doing that much for the economy anyway.
She's on her own now.
Hey, and who's this government telling me that I need brakes for my car and seatbelts?
Yeah, seatbelts. Yeah, come on. It's my God-given right to drink, 2 handles of Fireball and then hop on the freeway.
Yeah, I think we have sufficiently strayed from bottleneck.
I think we have.
Well, technically, speaking of, but yeah. Pretty much we're in the bottleneck right now, but you said there was two. You said there was, anyways, Eric. Okay, you said there was 2 human bottlenecks. I know of one about 70,000 years ago. I don't know about the other one.
Yeah, so there's the primary one, which is the one that occurred in kind of actually in Africa, Central and Northeast, I suppose, Africa, that used to be attributed to like the Toba volcano eruption. Now I think they're not so much saying that the eruption had too much to do with it. That perhaps it was more of like a founder effect type scenario that just reads as a result of the Toba eruption, the Toba catastrophe, some call it. But then the other one would be the sort of founders effects that we see in Asia and in North and South America from the crossing of the Bering Strait. So we've got these 2 massive, and really both of them can be attributed to small population of humans like popping up somewhere and doing new human things like.
Yeah, I heard that the American version it was very it had only 13 Y chromosomes like that or X chromosomes, I forget.
Yeah, I would imagine that it would probably be the Ys. But I'm not 100% sure. A lot of the anthropology that I focus on tends to be like late Miocene.
She's all about monkey.
Yeah, I'm big monkey energy. Like once we get into like anatomically modern sapiens, I tend to my knowledge is much less is much less
just duck out on us.
Yeah, I dip on modern humans.
That reminds me of your debate with Rana. So did he say like early Homo sapien are not human?
No.
Or did he say they were?
He thinks archaic sapiens is not human.
Even archaic sapien is not human. So God created anatomically modern Homo sapiens.
Yeah, he is straight up attributing Imago Dei, so in his image, to being anatomically modern sapiens, and is characterized by the advent of symbolism, advanced technology. With the advent of symbolism, he corroborates that with he correlates that with language, which is somewhat appropriate. But also the globular skull shape that is very trademark of modern sapiens, and the chin, which is much more pronounced in modern than archaic. But the problem is even that, and what I talked to him about when, I don't know if you saw the debate, but when we were discussing it, I was like, the thing is that like the only one of those things that can really hold up with any kind of certainty would be like the globular skull shape. And it's just not that much of a gradient from archaic to modern. It's slight. It's a much greater difference between like Neanderthalensis and Heidelbergensis to and their relationships with sapiens. But the thing with symbolism, we have no idea the extent to which even modern extant primates can symbolize. There's quite a bit of support that they can do some kind of like reasoning about time and events that have since passed and reference things that aren't immediately present. So that's kind of dicey considering just how much of a gradient we have from Sahelanthropus to sapiens. Like what were all of the interim capable of?
Two things real fast. one, a long time ago, I heard that, of Adam's kids, like the Seth line that led to Noah were Homo sapiens, and the King line obviously were Homo Neanderthals.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
heard that before?
There's that. There's the one where like the fucking Naledi is the Nephilim. There's all sorts of weird stuff where and this is classic because it's very telling to me whenever they attribute well, maybe the Neanderthals were the giants, they were the Nephilim that's talked about in Genesis 6, and it's like, yeah, they were shorter than humans. Like Neanderthals were smaller, like height wise, than anatomically modern sapiens, like across the board. So you're
magic.
And how many primates were on the Ark? Is it all the primate species?
They say like each of the for primates, they basically say every family. Although they raise Pungidae for the great apes because they can't have humans.
Yeah, they do Pungidae for all of the great apes, but the weird thing is they include all of the Cercopithecus, like all of them as a single group. And it's like when we look at the Cercopithecus, it's like you've got talapoins, and the difference between a talapoin, which is like the smallest old world monkey, and a mandrill, the difference in their brain case size is greater than the difference between genus Pan and Sapiens. So we're talking like an even greater encompassing of diversity and variety than would be if we included Sapiens with the rest of
I didn't know that. That's why we have you.
Yeah. Listen, I gotta know this ape stuff cold because that's my claim to fame. That's what I do. I'm the monkey lady.
The monkey?
Big monkey energy. I'm a big fan of the ape subreddit right now, though. That's like my favorite place to hang out.
Yeah.
I think that's really funny.
Your thing has got your ape of choice has got a bad rap because they're the lesser ape.
Oh, I know. They're so mean to the gibbons. We're campaigning right now. The small pocket of gibbon fanatics in the primatology community is campaigning to get the colloquialistic term changed from lesser to smaller.
Smaller apes.
We're trying to rep our, all gibbons are kings and queens.
I think it's funny that you're right. The Hylobatids have a huge diversity in chromosome number.
It's something like 30 to 52 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah, it's a ridiculous range. And again, creationists are okay with that because they don't know anything about Hylobatidae. They don't know about anything.
All the same.
Yeah, monkey is same. And so for human, and so it's the funniest thing that they will rage against the chromosome 2 fusion, which is by comparison literally nothing.
Yep.
But they are totally fine with the Hylobatids, and their numerous chromosomes.
Yeah, there's zero consistency. Jackson, I don't know or actually either of you, if you caught Dan's conversation with Standing for Truth on Dan's channel the other day. Standing was with a fiery passion trying to defend the concept that Homo neanderthalensis is itself a subset of Homo sapiens, like that sapiens yielded neanderthalensis, and indeed all of the other members of genus Homo are just degenerate sapiens. And the way that he was trying to support this was the fact that neanderthalensis is approximately 99.7 identical to the human genome. And so my question in the side chat was, okay, first of all, what the hell? Because you're the same person that absolutely rages against using the concept of humans and chimpanzees being 98.8% similar as a means to determine that we're members of the same family. And it's the same exact methodology. It blows my mind. Okay.
No, you're right. And I tried to get what's his name, Smokey, to think about that during our debate. At what point, and same with Anderson, who wouldn't admit to literally anything. He would not even say 2 species in the same genus are related.
No, he wouldn't commit. They cannot commit.
Yeah, because as soon as they do, you're going to catch them. You're going to catch them in a bind, and they're going to realize, oh crap, I can't say these two are related because then I'm going to be shown this genetic event that connects these two, and I can't explain why it doesn't connect the next group.
Yeah, it's obscene too, because even when the only one they'll commit to, it's the same thing with your conversation with Anderson, is dogs and dogs and
Yeah,
wolves.
dogs and wolves. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Walker says, why does SFT consider Homo floresiensis a legitimate species when most morphologic studies place it basal to Australopithecus sediba? It fits his agenda. To my knowledge, Standing for Truth considers floresiensis to be a pathology stricken strain of sapiens.
Yeah.
He cites exactly one study to back him up, which was released around the same time that floresiensis was actually discovered. Since then, there have been, I mean, at least half a dozen studies picking apart the potential pathology of
the microcephalic or whatever. Yeah.
But microcephaly doesn't match it, is the problem. The most recent study, which was 2017, I think, was like it pretty definitively put a cap on that. Not only is it not pathologic in the specimens we have, but it's pretty like holotypical for the species.
Right.
But and Sediba is weird too. Like Standing will do this thing where he's like, yeah, these species that look too transitional are artificial species. Like he thinks they're a mix of human and ape.
We predict transitions.
Do what?
We predict transitions.
Yeah,
not two transitional ones. Those we don't predict those.
Well, it turns out it's lifted almost verbatim from Contested Bones, the Sanford and Root book. That artificial species and paleo experts, both of, because Standing's tell is his it's his lingo. Like literally, it's the jargon that he uses. Rescuing devices comes from replacing Darwin. Interestingly enough,
Sure.
But yeah, the weird thing is he decries a lot of species for being mixes of ape and human bones, or Australopith and human bones is his wording of it. But what I don't think he gets, and I've mentioned this to him, and he kind of put me off and was like, we can talk about this at another juncture.
I'm too tired. I can't do this right now.
Yeah, I can't. Yeah, I'm too tired. Yeah, I'm exhausted. I can't. Yeah, he pulled the Maddox. But he was like, yeah, I don't think he gets the concept that when we say that things are mosaics, we're talking about the nature of the majority of the bones themselves. So it's not just that the pelvic girdle is mosaic. It's that each aspect of the pelvis is intermediate. And indeed the same thing with the shoulder girdle. Like the clavicle itself is intermediate. It's not the collection that makes them intermediate necessarily.
Right.
But I genuinely don't think he gets that, or at least he hasn't made that known to me.
No, I think you're right. They quote Gould on calling Archaeopteryx a mosaic. And they say that's one of their. I've like very rarely seen it, but I have as evidence for your point. Them saying he called it a mosaic, therefore it's not real. It's like, no, that's not what he's saying. That's not what mosaic means in comparative anatomy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, and when we say it's a mix of traits, we're not necessarily talking about specific structures, but rather the ratio of the suite of characteristics. Right. So, but they don't get that, which it makes it very frustrating. And if you know of, I would actually put money on this right now. I bet there's not a single, I have not encountered at least, a single anthropologist of the biological or physical variety that is a creationist. And it's because once you get up close and personal with any of the fossils, that's enough to dissuade.
I can't think of any. Not off the top of my head. I can't think of any. Well, actually, I can think of one zoologist, Ariel Roth. But aside from him, I really don't know any. They're almost all like either geneticists, but they focus on like this one teeny tiny slice.
Yep.
So they don't look at things generally, or they're like dentists or something.
Okay, or veterinarians, unfortunately, or dogs. Yeah,
they're actually like legitimate scientists, like geologists, or whatever. But they only talk about the subject, or they'll talk about the subject that they're expert in.
Yeah, no, you can't. What is it? The guy who is like an invertebrate paleontologist at the Discovery Institute. All the articles he writes are about human evolution. Why won't he talk about invertebrate evolution? I wonder.
Yeah.
Although I read one of his and I was like, he did actually write an article about Precambrian sponges. And I was like, okay, honestly, I don't disagree with anything in this article. My wonder is, what is your point?
Yeah,
Like, what was the point?
So much of it is like, oh god, okay, it's the same concept of like that plagues most of the creationists or just any mainstream scientist that has any kind of fringe belief. It's like, if you look into some of the guys who are like, professionals that are into like alien phenomena on the side or anything like that, it's almost their colleagues will be like, as a scientist, they're great, but their pet project belies less rigor, right?
Yeah, they leave their their god glasses at the door or whatever when they come into the lab. Snelling has done several papers on, I believe it's like these uranium mines in like Australia or whatever. So he does the geology and he'll say this mine is like 80 million years old, whatever, or this rock strata is. And, he'll say all that, but then he goes over to AIG and he's like, the flood caused all of this, when he knows it's not the flood.
No,
He knows this wasn't the flood. He knows exactly what caused these formations, and it was not a bunch of water. So.
Yeah.
Speaking of floods in the Ark, how many kinds of viruses are on the Ark?
Yeah, good luck with that one.
Yeah,
they don't think about parasites.
Yeah, they don't like parasites at all. Yeah, that my favorite thing is the fact that they waste actual physical space on their websites for like articles titled "Were there thorns in the Garden of Eden?" And I'm like, someone took the time to write this and like put it out there for everyone to criticize. It's like writing fan fiction. It's like science fan fiction.
Have you seen the one? What is like? Do plants die or something like that? It was like, did plants? Yeah, because what was it? It's like they had to eat something. You can't metabolize an organism without killing it, and so it's like, if there was no death in the garden, if they only ate plants and watermelons, and stuff like that, they were killing it. They're killing the cells.
I can only imagine if you teleported like Moses or whoever it was that wrote the majority of Genesis to this day and age, and like
definitely not Moses.
Yeah, definitely not Moses. And you like explained the situation to them, they would be like, "You guys are putting way too much thought into this. Like, it's just we're just trying to get back at the Babylonians. Like, you guys got to take it down a couple notches."
Yeah, like, okay, this is a story we told around the fire at night, like just because we were bored,
No,
yeah,
they'd be like, "Big mechanical monster, run!"
The year is 3020. It's like they're sitting around in your local church, right, telling the tale of the most hated figure in all of humanity, like that one guy who has the hook for a hand, who like comes up on you while you're like making out on the car.
Oh my god!
It's like taking an urban legend, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily the case. Obviously, I'm just saying I think that a lot of times there's a lot more like there's overthinking a little bit.
Yeah,
and also when you don't write stuff down for a while, even after you write stuff down, it can still be corrupted. But most of the time, the tales are probably telephone game. And
it's funny you mentioned that, because I saw a Christian movie years. It was a couple of years ago. It was while I was still at LSU Baton Rouge, and they were showing this movie, which is about the history of the earliest books of the Bible. Of the New Testament, the history of the earliest books of the New Testament, and they go through this whole thing. They're tracking back like the earliest books in the Latin and in the Greek, and they're like going back as close to the supposed events as they can possibly get. And they spend the whole movie talking about this. Well, at the very end of the movie, they ask one of the archaeologists who has been talking about, like, we carbon date this fragment. We look at the way the symbols are written, and we estimate it's around this time period, this decade range. And so they ask him, "Well, that means it's true, right?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not qualified to talk about whether or not it actually happened, but
that's actually just the method that they use on Ancient Aliens, where they'll be like talking about how the Greys built the pyramid, and then they pull aside like a legitimate astrophysicist, and they're like, "Yeah, so what's the nearest star system? And he'll be like talking about it, like all excited about how all the cool stuff about the nearest star system, how neat it is. And then they're like, so is it possible? They like clip him off at the end and they're like, so is it possible that aliens from Sirius 6 could have come here from distant ancient humans? Our experts say yes. And it's like, I can only imagine the libel claims that have been levied against ancient aliens.
Oh, there was Lawrence Krauss and Michio Kaku were like tricked into doing a geocentrism documentary.
Oh, good God. Are you serious?
Yes. Actually, the dude who did it was on Modern Day Debate a couple weeks ago, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He is a... he's a geocentrist. I've actually talked to him on Facebook because I knew a Pentecostal who was friends with him. And so he like under the air of like, I'm doing a documentary on physics, whatever, he sets up an interview with Lawrence Krauss and with Michio Kaku and gets them and, they talk about their stuff, but it's a geocentrism documentary. And so Krauss pens an article which the title's like, I have no idea how I ended up in that stupid fake documentary.
Yeah, swindled. Just
but Jackson, if the Earth is really round, how come I can put a level on the ground and it's all level?
Why are my shoes like this and not like this? Explain that explain that, globe earthers.
It's flat Earth, always has been.
We make our shoes flat.
Oh my God. Yeah, every shoe just has a built-in gyroscope.
Oh my God.
It's all a conspiracy.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
What a time to be alive.
Anyway.
Well, do we want to cover anything else? I got to get up kind of early in the morning, so I'm probably going to hit the hay here soon on the east.
You want to talk about the primate? Any more primate bottlenecks?
I mean, honestly, the problem with primates, considering like in the context of the global flood, is that primates as an order speciated and radiated like relatively recently, when compared to a lot of other life that would have had to be present on the ark. Basically anything that lived during the Mesozoic or the Paleozoic. Whereas all primates are pretty limited to the Cenozoic, and really kind of like the late Oligocene for that matter. Or Eocene? Late Eocene? I'm messing up. Hold on.
For which one?
I'm for Plesiodatus.
We need Colton here to get the geology names right.
Yeah, I once we get into the Pleistocene, I start like forgetting. Yeah, Eocene. Okay, great, Eocene. Anyway, so you get this initial radiation coming off from organisms that would have been very similar to the lemurs, and then you've got the Adapids and the Omomyids. So you've got your like Tarsier groups and your lemur groups, the lemurs being the Adapids and the Tarsiers being the Omomyids. And then from then you've got a radiation that jets off of that and ends up somewhere in Madagascar. And then the other group starts behaving a lot like old world monkeys and hanging out in the Fayum in northern Africa. And that's where you end up with your Proteopithecids, your Propliopithecids, your Ligopithecids, and your Parapithecids. So 4 big groups of primates, all looking like old world monkeys hanging around. A group of those ended up in one or multiple rafting events that landed them in South America. And once they got there, weirdly enough, in South America, for whatever reason, I tend to blame less seasonal change. But for the most part, they radiate a lot less radically than the ones that kind of the oligopithecids that stick around in the Fayum, because the ones that ended up in South America didn't undergo the crazy radiation of apes that we see in the Miocene. So all of a sudden, you can't throw a rock without hitting an ape somewhere in Europe or in northern Africa. They're everywhere. And from those giant ape radiations, we see groups that head out into Southeast Asia and Central Asia, and you end up with your Gigantopithecines and your gibbons, a lot of your Hylobatids. And there's a group that hangs out more in the Middle East and diversifies into Papio and Macaca, and some of those spread east again, and you get all of the crazy macaques that are hanging out over there. Baboons just absolutely infest all of Africa. All sorts of different kinds. Your Therapithecids do the same thing. So that's like your gelada baboons. And interestingly enough, we're technically in the age of the monkeys now, like compared to the age of the apes, which was more of a Miocene thing. Our monkey diversity is pretty insane. So basically,
monkey.
Yeah, big monkey energy. Agnostics be like, maybe. Yeah, it's really awesome. I mean, there's just so many different types of monkeys and apes. There's a paper that came out a couple of days ago that is now hypothesizing that the common ancestor of all hominoids was actually probably pretty gibbon-like, which I very much like that. It was previously thought that it was probably pretty chimpish.
Would that be like proconsul?
No. Like we're talking like post-Egyptopithecus. Like we're talking the very first ape that would be the common ancestor between Pongo, gorilla, Pan, and Hylobates would have been. It was very
if we ever find it, so we call her Mitochondria Erica.
Wouldn't that be sweet? I wish. I love gibbons. I think they're amazing, and I really like that gibbons are just so prolific. They're like the last of the apes that is pretty prolific like that and has so many different radiations.
I think I held a gibbon when I was in Alabama.
A sweet gibbon.
It was like this. I think it was in Gulf Shores where it was like this zoo, and they had this basically like a tent, and they had gibbons in there, and they were just kind of running around, and people could go in there and then just like hold the gibbons.
They are so funky looking, like up close. Their arms
they're real cute.
No, I love them. Don't get me wrong. When I was in doing undergrad research in Thailand, we worked at a zoo for a little bit in this central province called Nakhon Ratchasima, and they had these gibbons there that they were housing in quarantine, which, you know, the connotation back then was much more positive than it is now. They were basically just like hanging out, making sure they didn't have any diseases to pass on to the gibbons that were at the zoo. And so I went real close to the cage because it was, you know, it's central Thailand. It's not the most up and up facilities for the quarantine as in, you know, the rest of their facilities. So I walk up real close, and this huge, because, you know, they're not sexually dimorphic at all. So the males and females look identical. They're some species can be dichromatic, but by and large, they all have gigantic ass canines, big muscles. They're awesome. So this gibbon comes over to me, and she's this buff colored female. And she's looking at me, and she starts making this cooing sound. And so I start approaching the cage, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like I'm about to have a Jane Goodall moment. This is insane. This is the best moment of my life. I like kneel down by the cage, and she sticks her hand through, like with her palm to the sky. And I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. And I lean really close, and she yoinks my hat off the top of my head, pulls it through the kennel of the cage, and climbs to the top. And this whole thing has been very orchestrated and cognitive. And then she just starts trying to tear it to pieces with her teeth.
Oh,
and
my God.
I like looked at everybody, and I was like, oh my God, like I just got like grifted by this gibbon.
Well, you're a fellow female, and you're approaching her, like stay away from my man.
Have you read Descent of Man? Eric?
Have you read? No, I actually haven't read Descent.
There are some hilarious points in it where Darwin goes to a zoo. Like I fear for whatever it looked like zoos before animal rights. Where everything's basically just in a concrete cage. But he goes to one of the monkey enclosures, and he tests their fear of snakes. So he puts like a fake snake in a box, and they put it out there, and the monkey's gonna come over to it, open it, and they all like run away.
Yeah. Oh my God. They are absolutely. It's such a weird sensation to get up close and personal with any of like pretty much any haplorhine, I would say, because you look them in the face, and it's a little bit different from looking at like your dog or your cat. Like there's almost something calculating going on there, and I realize I'm totally anthropomorphizing them, but you know we had this conversation in my one of my programs this past year where we were like, you know, saying that we anthropomorphize some of the primates is kind of an ironic thing, right? It would be like if you had intelligent dogs saying they were like caniformorphizing like wolves, you know? It's like they themselves are also canids, you know? So
that's fair. Yeah, that is bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of neat because it's almost like what they do is just what we do,
well,
except a little bit more basal sometimes.
I think that like I don't know. I think it's very easy to sort of anthropomorphize other primates. I think it was just last year. I went to the North Carolinas, or one of the zoos in North Carolina, and saw gorillas up close.
Oh my God!
It's almost eerie.
Yeah.
It's one thing seeing like, you know, lemurs up close. They're all running around and doing crazy crap like squirrels, you know, and stuff. But it's another thing to see like chimps or gorillas or orangutans.
Yeah.
And because the gorillas, they're just sitting there. They're just chilling. The babies are
Running.
playing with each other. They almost look kind of like chubby people.
They regard you. They look at you, and when you make eye contact, they literally like regard your presence and acknowledge that you're there. And then they're just kind of like big chill. Like they just don't really care. Like they're like, whatever. Like
it was almost it was eerie. It's like almost embarrassing because it's like here you are behind this glass. You're in this enclosure, and you're 96% me.
Yeah, yeah.
It's speaking of gorilla. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I was going to say, speaking of gorillas and chimps, how much diversity is there between the two species of gorillas we have now and the chimps and the bonobos?
Chimps and bonobos, I'm fairly certain have more genetic diversity than either of our gorilla populations, and I think that's mostly just because there's more of them. To my knowledge, the gorillas that we have, especially the lowland gorillas, are pretty inbred. And not all of that is the fault of humans. A lot of it is, but they also underwent a bottleneck that was, relatively recent in geologic time, right? I think it was something like 68. It's either 68 or 86, I think, million or 1,000 years ago.
Still more than 4,000 years ago.
Yeah. Yes. Yes. Certainly more. Yeah. Yeah. I was blown away. There was a Twitter pic that went viral a while ago about a young female gorilla in some zoo in the Northeast, but she has vitiligo on one of her hands. And it just looks human. Like it's just a human hand. It's a wild.
I went to the zoo in was it Memphis, Tennessee? I think it was it. They had orangutans, and this orangutan has a blanket just kind of putting over her shoulder, and she just kind of sits there, and then it kind of comes down a little bit, so she kind of pulls it back up.
Yeah,
and I'm like man, it's whack.
You're like, if that ain't me, like you literally watch orangutans mess around and you're like, that's just me. Like when I'm getting out of bed in the morning, they're like rolling around, kicking the blanket, sometimes they walk around like they're, a babushka during the Cold War, with it bundled tightly around their heads. And
it's just a strange, I don't know if it's just like, I wonder if creationists ever feel strange. Do they ever feel like twinges of embarrassment looking at great apes in captivity and think, feel any connection whatsoever?
So do we or they think that back to basically animals that what's it called? I can't pronounce his name. The large orangutan. Yeah, is that the common ancestor of Yeti and Bigfoot?
Oh my God, that would be so amazing. Honestly, if Bigfoot's anything, he's got to be a paranthropine. Like if Bigfoot's going to be any kind of existing creature, it's something very similar to a paranthropine, because we know that the paranthropines had inline big toes. So it's like, if you're going to pin anything on Bigfoot, it's got to be something that's already similar to something that we know of in existence. As much as listen.
Oh no, here we go. You said it. You said Bigfoot, Vandalia. That was it.
I'm just.
It's over now.
I'll bite my tongue this time, but I have some thoughts and opinions about Bigfoot.
You need Vandalia. You need to have a stream just about Bigfoot.
Stream. I'll come.
I'm all for that, but yeah,
you need to get like Darren Naish, like contact Darren Naish, get him and Erica on here, and then they can discuss Bigfoot together.
I emailed Jeff Meldrum, the guy who wrote Sasquatch, the science behind the legend or whatever, and he's just like a legit hominid foot locomotion guy. Mm-hmm. And I just emailed him, and I was like, "Do you want to like chat sometime?"
Yeah. I always wondered how close related Bigfoot was to the Yeti and Abominable Snowman.
Oh my God!
I once emailed. I don't know why, but I emailed. I think it was Thomas Cavalier Smith one time. This guy's like 90 something, and I said, "Would you be interested in coming on my channel?" And he's like, "I'm too busy right now."
And you were like, "Ouch!"
And I was also like, "Why did I email this dude in the first place?" I mean, this is like, first of all, he's this ancient British microbiologist, but he's so prolific, and I think it would have been awesome, having him on. But at the same time, it's like the sheer hubris of emailing this guy just out of the blue, being like,
you just got ghosted by
Well, to be fair, he responded at least, right? You know,
Yeah, no, true.
Some people do. To be fair, that's how I felt when I first contacted you guys. Like,
oh,
Yeah, we're, my biggest problem with communicating with people is I read messages and then I forget that I didn't respond to them. Like in my head,
yeah.
I read them and I'm like, oh yes, message received. But then I never let them know that I like got their message. And then like months later, I'll be like, oh dang, like I hope they.
I feel that. Yeah.
and then you see a video about how bad you are on YouTube a week later.
I need to be canceled for my bad communication practices. I'm bad.
Hashtag cancel Erica. No,
Cancel Erica. Cancel the Gibbon. Cancel all Gibbons.
Cancel. AIG's cancel Darwin campaign was like the biggest fellow kids moment I've seen all year.
Those guys like or question Darwin Day, which is what CMI does. I find it so funny. It is hilarious that they have and they don't have a creation day or whatever, so they can all they have is anti-Darwin Day. That's all they got.
Imagine molding so hard about like a man from the 1800s.
Right? Yeah, it's the fact that what was it? Sanford was like dissing Darwin in some lecture, and if you read his Voyage of the Beagle, which was very good, Origin of Species, also great. I mean, it's a classic. It is the evolution book, Descent of Man, and his various other books like Orchids, Corals, the Geology of South America. Darwin was one of the most meticulous people I've ever seen. This is a guy who had like probably hundreds of experiments running at any given time. He probably had like orchards of different plant experiments he was doing all at once.
The thing is, imagine how much science you could get done when you're just on a ship for 5 years or whatever the fuck it was. Like, he's just chilling on the ship and he's like, I guess I'll just do some science. And then he just lightly revolutionized the industry.
Well, I mean, yeah, because he on that trip, he basically established like biogeography, biostratigraphy. He discovered multiple species of fossil mammal, because at the time he went to South America, there were only 2 fossil mammals known from South America when Darwin went. There were 2. Darwin brought back like 10 or so.
Which two was it? Peccary, maybe? And
I believe it was Megatherium. And
out.
I don't think it was Glyptodon.
The giant
I think it was
the armadillo.
Oh, that's right. It was a proboscidean, but it was misidentified as a mastodon. It was actually a Gomphothere.
So I was reading, one of my favorite parts of the Sixth Extinction was the coverage on Cuvier and like his whole mastodon like epic. He's just like, oh, hold on, someone's walking in. Oh, night, Dad. Love you. It's okay, laugh it up, chuckleheads. I love.
Whoa! I didn't even say anything. I'm just sitting here chilling.
I would have said, night, Erica's dad too.
That reminds me of like the scene from The Simpsons where the bullies are picking on Bart and they're like, Bart's dad loves him, and he's like, he does not,
Yeah, or there's one too where they're like, hey Simpson, who picked out your pajamas? Your mom? And he's like, well, yeah, who else would pick them out? I'm 10. And they're like, oh.
So you're like, I miss my mom.
Yeah. I love my parents, and I'm literally moving out like in either 2 or 3 weeks. Luke and I are probably getting a place and getting out of Dodge, but so I'm appreciating the time I have.
Indeed. What were you gonna say?
What was I going to say? I was talking about Cuvier. Cuvier, his whole deal with the mastodon, and he just like finds a ton of mastodon remains. He's like revolutionizing paleontology and coming into the new world, so to speak, and being like, look at all this stuff I found. And then he's like, theory of evolution, I don't know her, and he's like just rejecting the entire premises because he can't comprehend the idea that that life would be predicated on extinction events. You know, this whole concept of like, okay, there's this North American, proboscidean hanging out and doing proboscidean things, and there aren't any anymore. So how often does this happen? Like it was wild, and I'm reading it and thinking about it, and it's like there are so many just facts of life that we take for granted that at some point someone had to be like, wait, but how often does this kind of thing go down?
Yeah, it was heretical. The idea of extinction, that any of God's creations could have been snuffed out, was like heretical. But and we're just like, it happens. Yeah,
but then they died on the flood. Well, then they survived the flood.
Well, yeah, it's so funny because the creationists of like the Usher creationists would have been like, all the species alive, or the Linnaeus, all the species alive today have like, existed since creation.
1-to-1.
Yeah, whereas now they're like, okay, yeah, there was common ancestry, there were speciation events, some of them went extinct. It's like, you guys are trampling over centuries of creationism just to sort of try to catch up with evolution, but not be too much like evolution.
No, creationists will be dragged kicking and screaming into the modern world, heels in the ground the entire way, and eventually they'll have something that is indeed very similar to evolution, but just isn't, because that name makes their feelings hurt.
Well, I just hope it doesn't take as long as
feels over reals, guys.
I just hope it doesn't take as long as it is for the flat earthers.
Yeah, the flat earthers have received I don't even know where that comeback came from, but they really had us in the second half. They're the first.
I think the best way to deal with flat earthers is to take Scientist Mel's approach. Just Google where they live, see what the nearest psychological clinic is, and then send them the information on that.
Oh God, I find that their self-medication of hollowing out globes and hot gluing sunglasses to them just isn't working.
They're flying space pizza.
Oh,
by the way, I think I understood before, but I have the perfect comeback for flat earthers.
Oh, hit with it.
Mountains, they exist. Earth's not flat.
Tall things. Yeah. Luke was telling, I've told you guys this before, but his whole concept is like, if someone just comes up to you and starts like saying some crazy shit, conspiracy stuff, you just got to one up the conspiracy. So if someone's like, I don't think the moon landing happened, just be like, you think the moon is real?
Oh my God, yes.
People.
Excuse me, the moon, it's like just a circle on the firmament.
Yeah. It's just a big painted like blob from the other side of the firmament, obviously.
Or for Erica, I mentioned this in your last video. You said you go to you tell them you see my collection of skulls.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of an osteophile. I've got a lot of like random bones and stuff that I live in.
They had a what do you call it, like a cast or replica skull of like a Pachyena at this gem and mineral show I went to, and I looked at it and I was like, that's beautiful. How much is it? And they said $800, and I was like, that is beautiful from a distance.
Yep.
That was scary. Erica could scare people away. You say, I can show you my collection of skulls. He's like, okay.
I would have totally gotten it. If it were like $100, I probably would have gotten it. But 800, I'm like, I don't know about that. Yeah,
my most expensive replica was like $190, I think. It's like that's about the max that I'll pay. My uncle came into town probably a couple months ago.
So how many of your skulls are actually still bone?
Let me see. How many are legitimate actual animal skulls?
Yeah. Not just fossils or replicas.
Yeah, of the replicas, I have, I have 2 legitimate animal skulls. One is a coyote and one is a possum. Those both come from, like my area. And then I have some gigantic cow bones that my future mother-in-law had at her place that she was just like, I know you like bones. I cut these for you. And I was like, this is the start of a beautiful friendship. And so it was lovely. And I also have I think I have a chicken mandible too, like in that same group. But it's like, I think
we was dinosaurs.
You have first dinosaur bones?
Yeah, fair enough, right? And then of my replicas, I've got an Australopithecine. It's just Afarensis, the Smilodon, the human, and a rhesus macaque replica. I really want a chimp replica. That's my next on my
Oh
list.
my goodness! When we what is it? I was at the working at the museum at LSU Baton Rouge. So like you have the first floor, and then there's like an upstairs, but also a basement. And the Department of Mammalogy where I was working was kind of in the back, and it has like a little like area that's sort of elevated but is not upstairs. It's weird to explain, but anyways, it's like between the layers. I don't know. It's very weird. Anyways, paper thin layers. Yes, in the genome. And I was looking through, or I was like cleaning off some of these cabinets, and I saw in the cabinet it said Australopithecus afarensis skull, and I was like, "What?
Oh,
we have one?" And I opened it, I was like, "Oh no, it's a replica." Dang.
Okay. That was leading in. That's perfect lead in, because what I was just gonna say is when my uncle visited, he walked in, he saw the Smilodon replica. Keep in mind, my Smilodon replica was the reason I got it for like $190 instead of the normal super expensive ones, is because it's, instead of having like precarnosoles, it's got like just big ass molars. Like just
I'm Smilodon right here.
I need to take a chisel to it, but
Smilodon.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, so my mom or my uncle comes in and he sees it and he goes, "Oh wow." He goes, "Is that a real saber-toothed tiger skull?"
Yes.
I was like, "Yes."
Yeah, I was like that for a brief second. I was like
floored.
It's like the. Did you ever watch Steven Universe?
Yes.
Like when his eyes become stars. That's what happened to me for a brief moment, and then I realized they were replicas.
I've heard. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard it's a bad thing to call them tigers.
Yeah,
they're pretty distantly related to tiger, because we actually have some of their genes through paleogenomics. We have some of the American cheetah, which is actually a cougar, and the saber-toothed tiger, which is not a tiger. It's like sister to Felidae or something, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's pretty distant.
So not even felines.
Yeah,
it's pretty distantly related.
Yeah, Panthera seems more like an old world hub.
Yeah.
Genera. But what was I gonna say? I was gonna say something else. It was tangentially related. What was it?
Uncle Smilodon.
Oh yeah. So my old evolutionary human evolution professor, actually, he tells the story about he met the guy who found proconsul.
Oh wow.
And when he walked into the guy's office, the guy was he's this French dude. Yeah, I think he was proconsul. It was either proconsul or one of the artifice. I'm pretty sure it was proconsul because of what he said. He looked at him and he goes, "Oh, you want to see the little monkey?" And my professor was like, "Do I?"
It's like, is maybe?
Yeah, it really depends. Like, and
I'm in this French guy's office and he asked me to see the monkey. I'm not sure if I'm feeling it.
Yeah, if he wants to see his little monkey, and you're just kind of like, I don't know about that one.
Like I have we have here.
Phrasing. Yeah, so it was. I just have that image of he's a very like classic New Yorker too, and so like I just got this image of him like almost like looking at the door and like gauging how fast he could make it. Like,
oh my god!
Oh, man.
No, you want to see the monkey?
You want to see the little monkey?
Please. He's like, is gauging. Can I overpower this guy? Can I? Oh man.
Yeah.
Oof. Big oof.
Before you guys have to go, probably since the aircraft.
Yeah.
That's it. You have anything coming up on your channels you want to talk about? Advertise?
Yes. I've got my first book club for Standing for Truths Why Human Evolution is False all finished and polished and ready to go. I'm just trying to find a good period of which to do like a premiere or whatever, because you're supposed to be there for the premiere, so like to answer questions.
Like I said, any Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday, I'm off work. So I'm off work, so I have in those days I can either be there. Otherwise, I have to get the rerun.
Oh man, well the reruns are just as good.
True. And maybe your next book club, I can read your books too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, yeah, I don't know. You guys will hear you can probably gauge my opinion ahead of time, but we'll be going into the text in depth.
When we have a book club about Jackson's book.
Yeah, we need to have a fun book club where we just like enjoy. Yeah, let's have a Rocks Were There book club.
You said fun book club, and then you said let's read our book. Yes.
Okay, Jackson, I don't listen. I will hunt you down and congratulate you on a text well written.
No,
I'm
look,
actually only
look.
like third through, but it's
No, I'll be honest. I'm proud of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm extremely proud of it. This thing is kick butt. Would I call it fun? I don't know if I'd call it fun though.
When's the sequel coming out?
We're working on it. We're oddly enough, we have to do the first chapter last. Because the first chapter is sort of stuff that it's like a recap of stuff from the last book, but also stuff that we either missed or new things that have come up since we published the last book.
You want to have the latest.
Yeah, and so you will be like up to the minute when the second one comes out. Yeah, I'm working on. So RJ's got like the first two chapters, so that's chapter 1. Then 2 and 3, RJ's writing those. I'm working on 4, and I did not miss reading David Menton. Oh boy, I did not miss it.
Menton is the worst. Him and his bird deal. He's the worst.
He writes a lot, and yet he's on. No one talks about him.
Yeah,
it's like you talk about Standing for Truth, and the Brain Trust. They'll talk about Jensen and Sanford. Menton comparably writes a lot.
They don't care for Menton.
They just don't care. He does more morphology stuff, even though he is a cell biologist. But he does a little bit of genetic stuff.
Yeah,
but
isn't Menton like a self-proclaimed anatomist or something? Is he the anatomist?
Well, he is an actual cell biologist. Yeah.
Okay, right.
Is he talked about cell biology in his papers at AIG or different subject?
No. He talks about vestigial organs, about paleontology, everything except cell biology. Which, I mean, if you're like, if you're a zoologist, I can understand, like, you feel the sort of like, okay, I can write about animals generally. But if you're a cell biologist, you're like really honed kind of in there. And you're talking about paleontology, the theropod bird transition, that kind of stuff.
Weird. That's a weird angle.
Yeah. But in your recent mate with Smokey, I remember him bringing up all this time about do we have genetic information about this? He said, yes, we do. And he like totally ignored. It seemed like it wasn't listening or.
It was strange.
Is this mythology? No, it's genetics. Like,
it was fun because it was fun in that, like, we actually I managed to keep us on topic, which was about universal common ancestry. I did a poor job with Anderson, and that's on me. But I kept Smokey on topic about common ancestry. I kept coming back to, are these organisms related? And he's like, well, you're using morphology to connect them. And I was like, no, actually, here's the octopus example. He's like, well, that's a tree of morphology. And I was like, no. Here it says under it. Yeah, it says under the tree. It's like maximum parsimony analysis based on 308 genes. And I was like, this is genes, not more. There are morphological characters that connect all mollusks. There's like the mantle and I think the radula and a couple other things. But it's like, this tree isn't using that. It's using genes. And he was like, what's something else we can talk about?
Yeah, I don't know how you can hear the word phylogenetics and be like, it has to be genetics based, and it's not. And it's like, it's in the word.
Yeah, it's literally in the word. And yeah, that was so bizarre as he kept saying phylogenies are morphology based. It's like, they can be.
Well, phylogenetics is the combination, or it's a typical combination of genetics and morphology.
Right. So, like I said, first we had morphology, so we had genetics, but then we did genetics, and we found that not most, but not all, but most of them actually matched up each other.
Yeah, there's this large congruence between morphological. There is a sort of a broad congruence between morphological patterns and genetic patterns. You have the nested hierarchy, and sure, some things are weird, and you can pretty much only use genetics to figure out where they go. But even still, yeah, I was just like, what is he talking about? And that took me a little bit to figure out because I was like, did I hear him correctly? Did I hear him say phylogenies are morphologically based? You know?
Yeah, it would. Yeah. I was not sure what was going on that one in a lot of it.
Yeah, that was fun. I loved I especially loved 70 terrestrial phyla in the Cambrian. There were no terrestrial animal phyla in the Cambrian. Oh, I didn't mean the Cambrian.
Yeah, there seemed to be a lot of confusion with regard to the Cambrian versus when life becomes terrestrial, and like in his words, when did the first fish come onto land? Right,
it's like that was 150 years later.
We're
and that's,
we're talking a long
and that's way after the first protostones arthropods came on land.
God,
beat us, they beat us on land. They beat us on land and the air. The first dragonflies,
we got our asses handed to us by pretty much every other kingdom before we managed to like get around. Not just the kingdoms too, but a lot of like our a lot of phyla.
Yeah, it's like actually in total, it's like first of all, there aren't 70 terrestrial phyla. There are in total all animal phyla. There's like 36.
Yeah,
so that's half of 70. And of those, most of them are not terrestrial. They're mostly aquatic, marine organisms.
Only like two is terrestrial, maybe like where the arthropods are.
I mean there are several. I mean, you have mollusks, arthropods, onychophorans, nematodes.
Never mind. I'm dumb.
No, I mean,
I simp for onychophorans.
Hey, they're pretty neat.
I
think I remember reading an article right after the Australian fires where this one ecologist is like, my species may have just gone extinct, you know?
Oh my God.
And I was like sad because they're already rare. They only live in like, I think South America and Australia or something like that, and maybe South Africa. But that's it. That's their entire range.
Yeah, Onychophora and let's see, it's Onychophora, Tardigrada, and Arthropoda that make up Panarthropoda, yes?
Mm-hmm. And then that's nested within Ecdysozoa, which also contains Cycloneuralia and which contains Chinorhynchs and Priapulids, the penis worms.
Love those guys. Love them.
And Lariciferans, and then you have the nematodes and the nematomorphs. So all of those guys, Panarthropods, nematoids, and Cycloneuralians, they all shed their exoskeleton.
I wasn't. You ever watch brain science videos on YouTube?
No.
It's a girl named Emily something. But she's pretty good. She watched somebody's video about worms. She was a wormologist or whatever they're called. They said that two species of worms are more distantly related than we are to lancelets and starfish. There's more like phylums of worms than there are of chordates.
Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. I mean, there's the hemichordates are one. Those are the acorn worms. We're actually more closely related to those than they are to any other worms, because annelids. Annelids, nematodes, nematomorphs, platyhelminthes, Nemertea. There are a couple other ones, but they're all protostomes. And even then, nematodes are more closely related to nematomorphs than either are to platyhelminthes. Platyhelminthes and annelids are more closely related to each other. And then at the very base of Bilateria, you have the group of the xenocoelomorphs, which are these weird little deep sea worms, and also Xenoturbella. And they're the like most basal bilaterians, most basally derived living bilaterians.
It's like flatworms, or
they're kind of like flatworms. They're acoelomates, and so they're just these weird little dudes, being all basal and stuff, and just going about their business.
So Erica, are you ever going to finish your two unfinished series? Like one your extinction series, and then your myth series?
Oh, I actually have a third unfinished series that I'm also still working on, which is just going through very slowly all of the major human evolution steps. But I keep getting distracted, and
I know it's like so many things. Like I gotta finish this. Oh, new thing, like new distraction.
yeah, squirrel. Yeah, that's
Erica, you're better than me. Technically, all of my series are unfinished. I just leave them open for later videos.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of scrolls, I learned something today. I was visiting my mom at the nursing home, and we had to visit behind the glass thing that like outside. We had a big aquarium glass thing between the two of us, and we looked aside. I was with my sister. We were visiting, and we saw a squirrel with what was like a little mouse or possum eating it in its mouth. I looked up, and I didn't know this. I looked up squirrels mainly eat fruits and nuts and stuff, but they can eat. But they're omnivores. They will eat eggs and lizards and mammals and snakes if they have
Well, that's
to.
like freaking chimpanzees are largely frugivorous, aren't they? But they will eat like the little the red colobus monkeys.
Yeah, oh man, chimpanzees and actually like pick a primate. Like if it's pretty much if you have a catarrhine primate that is not either Therapithecus gelata, a colobus monkey, or a gorilla, it's probably eating a lot more than just fruits and like nuts and stuff. They are incredibly opportunistic. You've got male mandrills and certain male species of the genus Papio who will go after juvenile dikes. So like,
oh my god, no!
And they will
unsolicited dicks.
Yeah, yes. Except the opposite in America, the dicks, go after you, but in the African savannah, you go after the dick. I mean,
oh my god,
just skewering these guys on their massive freaking canines, and it's insane. But yes, the chimpanzees and the orangutans, more specifically genus Pan, so the bonobos and the chimps, very frequently will like hunt bush babies, colobus monkeys, very small ungulates, tons of the invertebrates, tons of small vertebrates, birds' eggs, whatever. Like they're like us. Like they'll see something and they'll be like,
"I'm gonna put it in my mouth."
It's good, yeah. What if they all have oral fixation? So
that reminds me of also from South Park where the Steve Irwin episode where he's like, "Over there is the world's deadliest snake. I'm gonna put my finger in its anus."
Yeah. I'm partial to the one where they do the experiment to see how money impacts rich men, and so they give a chimpanzee. They go out and pour all this money on a chimpanzee, and it just starts mating with everything else in the thing. And they're like, "Oh my god!" In the enclosure, they're like, "Oh my god." It seems like money has a direct impact on sexual success in chimpanzees. And they look back and they go, "Oh no, his wife's found out." And this female chimpanzee with like a rolling pin and like a nightgown on starts like beating the crap out of the male. And then it pans over and it's like, now he's giving the classic apology, and it's the chimpanzee on like a little podium going like into like a tiny microphone in front of all these other chimpanzees and like public apology. It's just ridiculous.
Oh my goodness!
Before we go, two things. Did you ever see that South Park Evolution skit they talk about?
Yes, with Mrs. Garrison.
Yeah, like
the one with Richard Dawkins.
And then a monkey frog got a squirrel and had you.
Yeah,
the frog or the fish had butt sex with
with the alien, and then
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
Oh, good God.
Oh, before we go,
that episode was like back when the Wii first came out. Think about that.
I think that was about the PlayStation 4 or 3, whatever.
It was the Wii.
I didn't need an existential crisis this evening.
But before we go on the topic again, did any of you? I found out before I started this video. I found out that STF actually made a video about this subject, about Noah's bottle ark thing. You guys see it?
No, I did not.
I have never watched his videos, and I don't plan on ever watching his videos.
I know Erica does sometimes because he makes your balls for him. But yeah, I noticed that right talking about the subject. I looked up genetic Noah's bottleneck, and the first video that came up was STF's video about genetic bottlenecks.
Oh, fantastic! That means we might have to visit it.
he makes videos on everything, because when you don't have to do any research, when you don't have to read anything, and you can fly by the seat of your pants on every subject, what's the point of doing research?
I wish I had that confidence. I literally, like, when I make a small, teeny tiny mistake, I'll be like, well, it's time to take the video down and like retire into the forest for the rest of my life.
Yeah. I
Research.
put my videos through 2 biology grad students and RJ. All of my scripts go through them, and
Oh my God.
and STF is like, or STF, SFT is just like, I'm gonna make some stuff up and put it out there. You know,
He got to go through his. Does he go through his brain trust? You think?
Oh, I don't know.
I
know-
doubt it.
I know he has Jason, Faithful, Honest, and True, go through his books.
Does he even have like raw Matt look the scripts over before he airs stuff?
I if I had to guess, I would say, to my current knowledge, I think SFT's the team SFT, the entire channel is like an amalgamation of all of the YouTube creationists that have just like flocked to a single location to consolidate their power.
This is their last stand.
Yeah,
right here. This
that's
is it.
what it seems like to me, because Ramat kind of does his own thing. It almost seems like they don't really collab all that much.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, he just kind of posts a video on their channel, but I mean, this is kind of their last hurrah. It seems like, I say that we're going to be 80 years from now, there'll be creations, but I mean, before there was a big diversity of them, there isn't anymore. They're all gone. This is the whole group right here.
Yep, I know. We're
I
witnessing
want.
an extinction event.
I want to find a phylogenical genetic tree or cladistic tree or of creationist quotes and where they came from.
Oh,
That
that
would
would
actually-
be insane.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting, because you can see in some cases, like who
Cribs
screwed
from
the
who?
right. Yeah, you can see who used it first, then who modified it, then who copied that, and then who modified it further. Because there are some that like some quote mines where they'll either have the ... but some of them won't put the ... so you'll think it's just one continuous phrase, and it'll just go from there. And so that we're witnessing evolution in action.
Okay, first of all, yes. Second of all, I do have to go because now my cat is scratching the door. But
Okay,
briefly before I do go, I was going to say an example of that was when I was preparing to chat with Nephi on the flood. We tracked down one of his quotes from Manetho to try and justify that the Egyptians had a flood myth. And it went from, this is paraphrasing, but it went from like a source back in like 1912 to like something in the 1800s, which was a mistranslation of an interpretation of the Book of the Dead that actually referred to catastrophe in general. And it went through like 2 different creationists who just tweaked it to be a flood. And you can like take that all the way back. It was insane. It took us like an hour to find the source.
That's whack.
Let me sign off real fast. Well, like I said, you can see Erica Jackson's and Evil Times links in the description below. Check out their channels if you haven't. Click their bells. And it's all. And hopefully they'll be back on sometime. Hopefully not in another 6 months. But anyways, never stop learning. Enjoy the randomness. We'll